We had a request from Sequana25. She suggested a Hexblood Archfey Warlock built around the Cartomancer feat. Well, we recently did a Hexblood Fey Warlock. Zapiel will put the link up here. However, her idea was great and we want to use it. So we're doing it, but not with a Fey Warlock. This is the sequel to the Ruined Knight video. In that story, a virtuous, chaotic good paladin has his life turned around by a deck of many things and ends up as a lawful evil Hell Knight sworn to Asmodeus. His story begins with a fortune teller presenting him with a deck of many things. This is the story of that fortune teller. Hi everyone, and welcome to a fortuitous episode of The Dungeon Crashers. I'm Guy.
And I'm Zapiel. Before we get started, please remember to like our video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our exciting D&D content. Today, we are wrapping up our inspection of the Book of Many Things. Last time we used the ruined background, and today we are using the opposite number, the rewarded background. This background represents someone whose life wasn't going so well before something, possibly a deck of many things, turns it around. While the deck makes a great plot hook, it isn't the only thing that could radically change someone's life. There are possibilities like making a deal with the devil. The rewarded background gives the skills Insight and Persuasion, one language that the player and DM agree on, and we are choosing Infernal to reflect the deal she made to turn her life around. It also gives proficiency with a gaming set, and she chooses a deck of tarot cards that can be used to play card games and at least pretend to tell fortunes. It also gives her choice of a feat that can be Magic Initiate, which could be the result of what changed her life, or the Lucky feat if it was just pure luck that changed her life, or the Skilled feat if she used her skills to turn things around. We are taking Magic Initiate. It gets 2 cantrips from one spell list of their choice, and they also get 1 first level spell from that list which they can cast once per day without using a spell slot. Sadly, they don't get it as a spell known that they can cast with their spell slots. She chooses the Druid list and takes the cantrips Thorn Whip and Shillelagh. For the spell, she chooses Entangle. This is one of the better first level control spells and is worth having even just once per long rest. As we said earlier, we are using the Hexblood lineage from Von Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. These are Fae who are created by hags or sometimes other eldritch magic and share many of the traits common to hags. Lore has it that hags reproduce by creating Hexbloods. They can be medium or small size depending on the race they were before becoming Hexbloods. It's possible to gain this lineage after character creation. If you do, you lose most of your racial abilities, but retain any racial skill proficiencies as well as swim or climb speeds. If you begin play as a Hexblood, you gain 2 skills of your choice, and she picks Deception and Sleight of Hand. She speaks Common and one language that the player and DM agree on, and she takes Sylvan, the language spoken by the Fae. Hexbloods have Hex Magic, which are spells they can cast once a day without using a spell slot, and they can cast them with any spell slot she has. The spells are Hex and Disguise Self. Both are great spells. She would get a lot of value from Disguise Self, and Hex is more useful for classes that get extra attack or Eldritch Blast, but it can be good for anyone. However, she is frequently going to have better uses for her concentration. Hexbloods have dark vision out to 60 feet, and they have the ability to create an eerie token. This is a magical token made from one of their fingernails or teeth that they can leave somewhere or give to another person. The token has a few properties. She can send a telepathic message of up to 25 words to the creature that is carrying the token if the creature is within 10 miles. She can also enter a trance for 10 minutes or until she chooses to end it. While in this trance, she can scry on the location of the token and see and hear as if she were in the token's location. When the trance ends, the token is destroyed. Once she creates a token, she can't create another until she finishes a long rest, at which point the tooth or fingernail grows back. Hexbloods get the ability score boost common among the newer races, which are 3+1 bonuses that she can put wherever she wants, but no more than 2 on the same ability. Using the point buy system, we put an 8 on strength. She was a human before becoming a Hexblood, but was a young girl and had not developed much strength. We put a 13 on dexterity, making it 14 with the first bonus point. She is quick and graceful. We put a 12 on constitution. While she is healthy for her size, she isn't large or tough. We put a 13 on intelligence, making it 14 with the second bonus point. She is clever and has an aptitude for magic. We put a 15 on wisdom, making it 16 with the last bonus point. She is perceptive and calculating. We put a 12 on charisma. She is pretty but not beautiful, and she can be charming at need, but often has a sharp tongue.
As the girl stands on the road watching the army of darkness pass on into the distance, she smiles sadly. He had been a nice boy, and she still remembers his touch. She was just the agent of his destiny, not the cause of it, but she still thinks of what it might have been had they not both drawn the attention of Asmodeus. She stands alone, her master having returned to the Hells as abruptly as he arrived. Even if she had not been covered by invisibility when the army passed, Asmodeus' champion wouldn't have recognized her. Rather than the garb of a fortune-teller, she wore her own armor of hell steel and a shield bearing the arms of Asmodeus. Rather than a sword, she carried an iron-bound quarterstaff that reeked of power to those who had a sense for such things. Her face was similar to her guise as a fortune-teller, but less beautiful. Her hair was the same raven black, but her skin was a deep purple, and curving horns form a crown around her head. She walks quietly towards no particular destination, reflecting on what brought her to this point. As a young girl, her parents had sold her to a witch. That seems blunt, but it's the truth. Perhaps her parents felt they had good reason. They were poor and had many children. Maybe they felt that parting with one for the good of the others was a good deal. It wasn't a good deal for her. The witch, an Annis hag, was a cruel mistress. The girl was beaten regularly, and when she grew older was frequently given as reward to the trolls and goblins that served the witch. The witch did teach her the basics of magic, and began transforming her into a hag, but otherwise treated her as a servant and not a favored one. The girl longed to escape, but knew the hag or her minions would track her down. One day, when the witch was away, she dared to look in the witch's grimoire. She had not been taught the writing of spells, but she had learned the language of fiends, and the name of one was written in the book, along with a note that the being was an enemy. The girl knew the name. It was the name of a lord of the Hells. Having little to lose, the girl called out the name, Asmodeus, and beseeched its aid. Much to her surprise, her plea was answered, and a handsome dark-haired man appeared before her. The man was regal and handsome. The horns on his head did nothing to mar his beauty. He asked in a calm voice, "To what end have you summoned me, child, and do you know the price?" Frightened, she answered in a rush. She told the Lord of the Hells of her trials and tribulations, going on at length about the cruelty of the hag, before the devil impatiently bid her to be quiet. He said that the hag was known to him, but of little importance. Despite that, it would please him to cause her inconvenience. Asmodeus told her that not all hags are creatures of the Fae, like her mistress. Some are creatures of the Hells, called night hags, and were the greatest of them all. If she would swear herself to his service, he would guide her on the path to becoming one, and then she could take vengeance on her tormentor. Having little to lose, the girl agreed. Our hero begins play as a cleric, in service to Asmodeus. He is among other things the god of magic, and she takes the Arcana domain. She gains 2 skills from the cleric list, and she chooses history and religion. As an Arcana cleric, she also gains proficiency in the Arcana skill, and she gains 2 cantrips of her choice from the wizard list, and she chooses Green Flame Blade and Acid Splash. With Shillelagh and Green Flame Blade, her quarterstaff will be an effective weapon in combat, but she will prefer to use spells when possible. She is proficient with light and medium armor, shields, simple weapons, and wisdom and charisma saves. Clerics gain spellcasting. She gets 2 first-level spell slots and learns 3 cantrips from the cleric list, and she takes Guidance, Toll the Dead, and Sacred Flame. Clerics are prepared casters and can prepare a number of spells from the cleric list, equal to her cleric level plus her wisdom modifier, so 4 for now. She prepares Healing Word, Cure Wounds, Command, and Bane. Clerics can use a Divine Focus in place of material components that lack a gold piece value. She uses a shield with the symbol of Asmodeus on it. She can perform somatic components with the same hand that holds her focus, so she can cast many of her spells while holding her staff and shield, but there are exceptions. Spells that have somatic components but not material components require to have a free hand, unless she has the Warcaster feat. And if a spell has a component with a gold piece value, she must have a hand free to use it. This will influence the spell she chooses to prepare. Spells she wants to use in combat should be ones that won't require her to have a free hand. Healing, divination, and spells she won't need to use in combat can be anything she likes. Clerics are also ritual casters and can cast any spell they have prepared that have the ritual tag without using a spell slot if she extends the casting time to 10 minutes. Arcana clerics get domain spells at each spell level up to 5th. These spells are always prepared and don't count against the number of spells she can prepare. At this level, she gets Detect Magic and Magic Missile. Detect Magic is a ritual, and since it's always prepared, she will always have access to it. At second level, she becomes a first level wizard. She gains 3 cantrips from the wizard list, and she takes Minor Illusion, Firebolt, and Friends. At this point, she has 10 cantrips from 3 different lists and has most of the bases covered. 3 attack roll cantrips, Firebolt, Acid Splash, and Thorn Whip. Acid Splash can hit multiple targets, and Thorn Whip can pull enemies. She has a Blade cantrip in Green Flame Blade, 2 saving throw cantrips, Toll the Dead and Sacred Flame, that do different damage types and target different saves, and 3 utility cantrips, Guidance, Minor Illusion, and Friends, all of which can be very powerful. Wizards are prepared casters like clerics and can prepare a number of spells equal to their wizard level plus their intelligence modifier, so 3 for now. Unlike clerics, she can only prepare spells that are in her spellbook. She starts with a spellbook containing 6 first-level spells. She takes Identify, Find Familiar, and Comprehend Languages. All are rituals. She also takes Grease, Silvery Barbs, and Sleep. At this level, Sleep is still pretty effective. At higher levels, she won't prepare it much, but early on it's one of the best things a wizard can do. Grease is another good battlefield control spell, and it doesn't require concentration, and mixing this with Entangle is pretty funny. We would like to take Shield, but would need a hand free to cast it, so instead she takes Silvery Barbs as her defensive reaction. She gets a 3rd first-level spell slot. Normally when multi-classing casters, your number of spell slots will be different from a single-class caster. In this case, both her classes are full casters, so will be the same as if she were a single-class full caster. Wizards are ritual casters like clerics, but don't need to have the spell prepared as long as it is in their spellbook and the spellbook is in their possession. Wizards can use an arcane focus in place of most material components. Unlike a divine focus, this must be a wand, staff, rod, or orb, and can't normally be part of a weapon or a shield. But since a staff is an option, and she uses a staff, she can use that as her arcane focus. This has the same limitations as the cleric does when using a weapon and shield, so we will also consider this when choosing spells. She also gets Arcane Recovery. Once between long rests, she can regain half her wizard level in spell slots. The spell slots can be of any combination of spell levels up to the total, so at 4th level she could take 1 2nd level slot or 2 1st level slots. She can conjure a familiar. A crow or snake sound appropriate. At 3rd level she becomes a 2nd level wizard and devotes herself to a school of magic, and she chooses Divination. As a diviner, she gains portents of the future and can use this knowledge to her advantage. When she finishes a long rest, roll 2 d20s and record the results. She can replace any attack roll, ability check, or save with one of the numbers she rolled as her portents. She must do this before the roll and can only do this once a turn. When she finishes a long rest, she loses unused portents and rolls 2 new ones. This is a powerful ability and the main reason diviners are so good. She gets a 4th first level spell slot and 2 2nd level spell slots. She can't prepare or cast 2nd level spells yet, but she can use these to upcast first levels. She also adds 2 more spells to her spellbook and chooses Charm Person and Absorb Elements.
Our hero was taken from the hag's hovel and magically transported to a strange place. The room was brooding but not unpleasant. The room's occupant was a hag more fearsome than the one she had just escaped. She shrank back towards Asmodeus, but the Lord of the Hells was already gone. Instead of harming her, the hag bid her welcome and offered her some tea. Surprised, she accepted and followed the hag to a setting room where there was a pot of tea and some pastries. The hag explained that Asmodeus had instructed her to train our hero in magic. They spent some time talking, and the fearsome hag seemed more kind than dangerous. She shyly asked why, explaining that her previous mistress had been cruel. The hag crackled. "You are a guest of the Lord of the Ninth. It wouldn't serve me well to be unkind to you, and if your training goes well, you will be a powerful fiend such as myself. I wouldn't wish to make an enemy of you anyway." The training went for many years. Although she did not seem to age, the hag was strict and stern, but not cruel to her, and she learned both the ritual devotion to Asmodeus and the arts of magic and divination. At long last, the hag informed her that she had learned enough to return to the world of men and serve Asmodeus directly. Hexbloods are fey, not humanoid, so spells that affect humanoids such as Charm Person won't work on them, and spells that affect fey but not humanoids like Protection from Good and Evil will. Since this character is becoming a night hag, I would for roleplay purposes ask the DM if she can change her type to fiend instead. It wouldn't have any real mechanical advantages, as it doesn't give or change any of her powers. It would change how she is perceived by Paladin's divine sense, and change how certain magic works on her, but it's otherwise equal. If your DM says no, it's fine. It doesn't change the build in any way or make it weaker. At 4th level, she becomes a 2nd level cleric, getting Channel Divinity once per rest. It can be used to turn undead, and as an Arcana cleric, she can also turn Celestials, Fays, Elementals, and Fiends, which cover a big chunk of enemies. The rules for turning undead are found in the player's handbook, and the description of Arcana Cleric explains how it works on extraplanar creatures she can turn. She gets a 3rd 1st level spell slot and can prepare another 1st level spell, and she prepares Protection from Good and Evil. At 5th level, she becomes a 3rd level cleric. She gets 2 3rd level spell slots and can prepare 2nd level spells, and can prepare one more because she gained a cleric level. And she prepares Augury, and it's because it's a strong divination and a ritual. She also begins preparing Prayer of Healing instead of Cure Wounds, and trades one of her other 1st level cleric spells for Hold Person. She gets domain spells as well, and they are Magic Weapon and Nustel's Magic Aura. Magic Weapon doesn't help her much. Her attacks with Shillelagh are already considered magical, and just a +1 bonus isn't a good use of a spell slot and concentration. On some characters, the Magic Aura wouldn't be all that useful either, but our hero is a deceiver and a manipulator who relies on disguised self, so being able to deceive the divination spells used on her can be useful. She could approach a paladin, for instance, and his divine sense would only reveal her as a human, and adept magic wouldn't uncover her illusion. Her cantrips improve at this level. The damaging cantrips all gain an additional dice of damage. Green Flame Blade now deals a d8 to the target, and a d8 plus her wisdom modifier to the second target. Remember, Green Flame Blade is a cleric cantrip for her, so benefits from wisdom, not intelligence. At 6th level, she becomes a 4th level cleric, getting an ability score improvement or a feat, and she takes the Cartomancer feat. It is a new feat from the deck of many things, and it gives a few abilities. First, she can use a deck of cards as a focus for her spells. The description just says spellcasting focus, so she can use it for her cleric and wizard spells. In combat, this won't be useful, as she has both hands occupied, but when in disguise and using intrigue, it is excellent, especially when she is posing as a fortune teller. She also learns Prestidigitation cantrip and can use it to duplicate the effects of stage magic. When she uses it for this purpose, she can disguise the components of a spell as normal conversation and card handling. Both of these abilities are cool and have good uses in roleplay situations, but aren't really worth a feat. It's the last ability that makes it worth it. It's called Hidden Ace. After a long rest, she can choose a card and imbue it with a spell from either her class list, and later she can flourish the card as a bonus action and cast the spell. This effectively gives her one free casting of a spell per day that can be any spell on her class list. It doesn't have to be prepared or in her spellbook. It also lets that spell be cast as a bonus action, which can be very good. The spell has to be of a level that she can prepare and have casting time of 1 action. She can choose from both the cleric and wizard lists, giving her a lot of variety, but she can currently only prepare 1st level wizard spells. Something like Blindness, Deafness, or Tasha's Hideous Laughter that would be great cast as a bonus action are good choices. This ability doesn't say you need a hands-free to flourish the card, so by rules as written you shouldn't, but if your DM disagrees, remind them that you have sleight of hand. This might change their mind. She can also prepare another spell, and there isn't anything specific she needs to pick, something that will work with your campaign. She gets a third level spell slot and can learn another cantrip and chooses Thaumaturgy to complement Prestidigitation. This brings her cantrip total to 12. At 7th level, she becomes a 5th level cleric. She gains a 4th level spell slot and can prepare 3rd level spells. She begins preparing Clairvoyance for another powerful ritual and will trade out one of her lower level spells for Spirit Guardians. She also has access to Bestow Curse, which could be a good choice to imbue into a card. Her domain spells for this level are Dispel Magic and Magic Circle. Dispel Magic is nice, and it is one she would want to prepare anyway. She currently doesn't have much use for Magic Circle, but will be able to take advantage of it later.
She trained for a while longer, trying to decide on a course of action when she returns to the mortal world, but didn't have to think long. A devil came to the residence. It was just an imp, but it bore a message from her master Asmodeus, as well as a gift. Our hero read the message that had been brought. It said, "My servant, I am pleased with your progress and have an assignment for you. In a town not far from where I rescued you, there is a nexus of fate that will be useful to me. A young noble in the town is at a crossroads, and I would turn his destiny in my favor. The deck of cards that this imp has also brought you is an instrument of fate. Its powers only awaken in the presence of one whose fate is in question. You are to take it and convince the young man to draw cards from it. I know not what the fates will give him, only that I have foreseen that the outcome will lead him into my service." Our hero was too wise to ask a lowly imp for advice on how to accomplish the task, and clever enough that she didn't need to. She simply thanked the creature and returned to her chambers. She gathered her belongings and spoke to the hag. She said, "I have been given a task and know where I must go, but need your assistance to return." The witch took her to a magic mirror and bid her to imagine the place she wishes to go. She did so, and the image in the mirror changed, scrying upon the spot she had imagined. The witch told her that she can scry as long as she likes, and when ready to travel, she can step through the mirror and travel there. She surveyed the area for a time, and then passed through the glass towards her own destiny. At 8th level, she becomes a 6th level cleric. She gains a second use of Channel Divinity per rest, and from Arcana domain, she gains Spellbreaker. When she casts a healing spell on a target, she can also end one spell of her choice on that creature, as long as the spell is of equal or lower level than the healing spell. She gets a second 4th level spell slot and can prepare another spell, and she chooses Speak with Dead. Though not a divination, it's a great source of information. She can also animate dead at this level, and could prepare that, but she could also choose to prepare it only when she has something she wants to animate. It really depends on how often she wants to create zombies. If she wants to have a bodyguard all the time, she will need to prepare this every day. But if it's only for particular situations, she can just prepare it as needed. At 9th level, she becomes a 7th level cleric, getting a 3rd, 4th level spell slot and a 5th level spell slot, and can prepare 4th level spells. She prepares Divination for another powerful ritual, and she will trade out a lower level spell for Banishment. Her domain spells are Arcana, which is an excellent scrying spell, and Leomund's Secret Chest, which is extremely handy, and could be a good place to store her armor and staff when she is working in disguise. At 10th level, she becomes an 8th level cleric, getting another ability score improvement on her feat, and she needs a lot. Her wisdom, dexterity, and constitution are all low for her level. Right now, she's primarily a cleric, so getting the wisdom to 18 is probably the best choice, but the other two are also important. From Arcana domain, she gets potent spellcasting that lets her add her wisdom modifier to the damage of any cleric cantrip she casts. This doesn't say once per turn, so depending on your DM, this could be extra powerful for her. Green Flame Blade and Acid Splash are both cleric spells for her, and both damage multiple targets, so she should be able to add her wisdom modifier to the damage against each target. She gets a second 5th level spell slot and can prepare another spell, and she begins preparing Death Ward. At 11th level, she becomes a 9th level cleric and gains a 6th level spell slot and can prepare 5th level cleric spells, and will prepare Mass Cure Wounds. Now, the way I read Spellbreaker, if she targets multiple creatures with a healing spell, she can also end a spell affecting each of them, but check with your DM about this. Her domain spells are Planar Binding and Teleportation Circle. Teleportation Circle is great to have, and not normally available to clerics. Planar Binding is a great way to get a powerful ally, and she already has Magic Circle. The main problem is the lack of spells to summon things to bind. She does get Conjure Celestial, which doesn't seem appropriate, but I suppose binding one of them to serve her might be in character. At 12th level, she becomes a 10th level cleric, gaining Divine Intervention. Once per day, she can ask Asmodeus for aid, and then use an action to roll a percentage, and if it is less than her level, aid is granted. The DM decides what form the aid takes, but the effect of any cleric spell or Arcana domain spell would be appropriate. Asmodeus might use Planar Ally to send a fiend to rescue her, or raise dead to restore an ally, or even more powerful effects. If aid is granted, she can't ask again for 7 days, but if it isn't, she can try again after a long rest. Players often forget this ability, especially when the chance is low, but 10% isn't bad and she should try frequently. But remember, it does cost an action, so it might be better to use before or after combat. She can prepare another spell. Commune is a powerful but risky divination. Other possibilities are Insect Plague and Flame Strike. She can also raise dead, but can usually afford to take a rest before casting it, so doesn't need to keep it prepared. She learns another cantrip. She already has most of what she wants, But Word of Radiance is an interesting option. It hits multiple enemies, getting the most value out of her potent spellcasting.
Upon reaching the town, she took the form of a beautiful fortune teller and went to wait at the local tavern. She had used scrying and divination to learn a bit about her target and knew that she would find him here eventually. The young knight did not disappoint and was easily led along the path that she had laid out for him. She had gotten him to escort her to the palace, which was a diversion as she had no need to be there, but if she turned out she did go there, Asmodeus had assured her that the wizard here would vouch for her. The two stopped for the night at an inn. The young knight was a gentleman and arranged for her to have her own quarters, but she would see that he wanted it otherwise. She could see the eagerness on his face when she invited him into her chambers, and the disappointment when she said she wished to tell his fortune. He drew 3 cards from the deck, and as she read them, each was more dire than the last. Feeling a little sad to have delivered him to this fate, and finding him attractive, she decided at least she would give him what he sought before leaving him to his destiny. After he slept, she took what he had of value. She didn't see herself as a thief, but the cards had already decreed that he would lose everything he owned, so better than her than with someone else. Then, leaving the deck of cards behind, as her master instructed, she fled into the night. She had other business in the area to take care of. At 13th level, she becomes an 11th level cleric. She gains a 7th level spell slot and can prepare 6th level spells. She will begin preparing Harm. She can also trade out a lower level healing spell for Heal. As we mentioned earlier, she has Planar Binding, but a lack of things to bind. But at this level, she gets Planar Ally as a possible spell, and it could work depending on your DM. The spell beseeches an extraplanar entity for aid. In her case, Asmodeus, who sends a fiend to her. The fiend isn't under any obligation to help her, but she can bargain for its assistance, which can be expensive. Planar Binding isn't cheap either, but less than this, so she could call a fiend into a magic circle and then cast Planar Binding on it. How this works is up to your DM. They could say that Asmodeus wouldn't be pleased with her binding his servants. In our game, it wouldn't be a problem. Devils getting bound is kind of business as usual for the Hells, so it should be fine, but every DM sees things differently. She can also trade out Animate Dead for Create Undead, which will get much more useful servants, especially since she has 7th level spell slots she can cast with it. At 14th level, she becomes a 12th level cleric, getting an ability score improvement or a feat, and another difficult choice. She needs more intelligence and more constitution. At this point, I think constitution is more important, but both for durability and concentration checks, so she will increase it to 14. She can also prepare another spell, and any that we mentioned before would be good. Insect Plague would be a good choice, and it seems appropriate for a priest of Asmodeus. At 15th level, she becomes a 13th level cleric, getting an 8th level spell slot and can prepare 7th level spells. She can prepare an additional spell and begins preparing Firestorm. This is one of the best damaging area of effect spells. It deals good damage and gives a lot of control over an area of effect. At 16th level, she becomes a 14th level cleric and can prepare another spell. A Divine Word is a good choice. If used strategically, it can end a lot of fights. Its ability to banish fiends and celestials is also very good. My favorite part is that it is a bonus action, allowing her to use it and also attack or use a cantrip in the same turn. At 17th level, she becomes a 15th level cleric. She gets a 9th level spell slot and can prepare another cleric spell of up to 8th level. 8th level is really a bit disappointing for clerics, especially evil ones. Sunburst is a good spell, and we will take that even though it's not really in character. Holy Aura would be good, but it affects all fiends and undead, which would include the ones she has working for her.
Her mission for her master completed, she decides to tend to a personal matter. She had been preparing for some time for this, and has collected an assortment of valuable items and other things that a fiend would accept as payment. She then beseeches Asmodeus for aid, and he sends her a powerful commander of Hell's Legion, an Irene's devil. She appears as a beautiful winged woman clad in plate armor and armed with an enchanted bow and sword. Our hero explained her mission to the devil and offered sacrifice in exchange for service, and the devil readily agreed, seeming pleased with the task. With the devil at her side, she traveled to the forest where the Annis who had abused her still dwelt. She had been using magic to keep track of the hag's doing, and had indeed become powerful, commanding powerful magic and many troll and goblin servants, but would be no match for her power and that of her devil, but she was taking no chances. They moved carefully to avoid alerting the Annis hag of their approach. Along the way, they encountered a group of hobgoblin warriors, which they quickly dispatched. Calling upon her most powerful magic, she filled 2 of the dead hobgoblins with necromantic might, transforming them into mummies under her command. They dispatched many more of the hag's minions before arriving at the witch's hut. Knowing the witch's arrogance and rage, our hero called out challenges and insults, and the hag responded as expected, charging recklessly into battle with a dozen trolls at her side. The Irenes moved to attack the hag, but our hero motioned her to deal with the trolls alongside the mummies. "This is my fight," she said, and raised her enchanted staff, willing magical power into it, causing it to respond to her will and burst into flame. The blow from the staff was mighty and sent the hag reeling, but was not nearly enough to win the fight. But it wasn't intended to. She was just playing with the hag. The battle was then joined in earnest, with both she and the Annis trading spells and blows. The devil and mummies were handling the trolls well, but more were coming out of the woods to surround them. With a wave, she drew a card from her sleeve and flourished it, releasing a firestorm that blasted the incoming trolls and the enemy hag as well. When she brought her flaming staff down for a final blow, that shattered the hag's skull. The remaining trolls tried to flee, but she cast another firestorm, finishing them off. She then instructed the devil to take the mummies and cleanse the forest of every goblin and troll they could find, and then their bargain would be fulfilled. At 18th level, she becomes a 16th level cleric, getting another ability score improvement on her feat, and she will increase her intelligence to 16. This will allow her to prepare an additional wizard spell from her book. She can also prepare another cleric spell. Earthquake is, in my opinion, a waste of an 8th level spell slot. It's practically useless in combat, and its only real use is if you need to destroy a town or keep. However, a servant of Asmodeus may well have to do that, so it could come in handy. At 19th level, she becomes a 17th level cleric and can prepare 9th level spells. Mass Heal, Power Word Heal, and Gate are all excellent spells depending on her needs, but Gate would allow her to call powerful beings from the Hells, or transfer herself and her companions to the Hells if needed. As an Arcana cleric, she can also choose a wizard spell of 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th level, and they become domain spells for her, which are always prepared and don't count against the number of spells she can prepare. For the 6th level spell, she takes Mass Suggestion. For the 7th, she takes Teleport. For the 8th, she chooses Dominate Monster. And for the 9th, she takes Wish. Mass Suggestion and Dominate Monster will make it easy to bend others to her will. Teleport will let her travel freely in service to her master, and Wish can do almost anything, although she will not want to use any of its more powerful options, because unlike a wizard, she can't replace it with a different 9th level spell if she loses the ability to cast it. But even just its regular use makes it a powerful and versatile tool. At 20th level, she becomes a 3rd level wizard. She can now prepare 2nd level wizard spells and adds 2 to her spellbook, and takes Misty Step and Mirror Image. Both are good spells at any level, and don't have attack rolls or save DCs that would suffer from her relatively low intelligence. As a final act before quitting the region, hopefully for good, she returns to the home of her parents. It's been many years since they sold her to the hag, but she had not forgotten. She approached the hovel in which they lived under the cover of darkness. She felt a mixture of anger and sadness as she went to confront her father. A light from an unbanked fire led her to believe that those in the house were not all sleeping. Knowing that the door had no lock, she pulled it open and strode in. Her parents sat near the fire with 2 young men who she assumed were her younger brothers. Her mother screamed, which woke the remaining children. "Silence!" she commanded as she strode toward her father. He shrank away in fear as her hand reached out. "Don't you recognize me, father?" she asked. "The child you sold?" Recognition glimmered on the faces of her parents. Her mother began to cry. Her father, trying to be brave, stood between her and the children and asked, "Have you come for revenge, to kill us?" She answered, "Not today. I've come to let you know I live and prosper. But what I have become is your doing." She tosses a bag of coin at his feet. It's not much to her, but a fortune to a peasant family. "Take this," she said. "Let it be enough that you won't sell further children. For if you do, I will know of it, and I will return and do more than kill you. I will drag you to the hells and offer your soul as a sacrifice to my master." She then turned and strode from the hovel, preparing to transport herself far away when she heard the voice of her master. "Don't be so hasty," Asmodeus said. "Walk with me. There's something I would have you see." We hope you enjoyed this character as much as we did. Making villains can be fun. As a character, this is pretty strong. Her wizard dip seems unnecessary, as it requires her to invest in intelligence and slows her cleric casting. In a way, we took it for roleplay reasons, but it also has some advantages. Early on, the first level spells she gets will be better than faster advancement as a cleric, and the Diviner's portents are really good. At higher levels, the slowed spell progression does make a difference, but she's still very powerful. One last advantage is that she can attune items that have to be attuned by a wizard, which is a powerful thing. As to her overall power, she is a strong caster despite the wizard dip, and she has a lot of endurance. Even without spell slots, she has a lot of power. She knows many ritual spells and has a ton of cantrips, enough to have the right one for most situations. Many of these also benefit from her potent spellcasting. For damage, Acid Splash stands out, and in melee, she may only have one attack, but it's pretty effective. Using Shillelagh and Green Flame Blade, she does 1d8 plus 4 for the staff, plus any magic bonus it might have, and 3d8 plus 4 for Green Flame Blade. And if Green Flame Blade has a second target, it will take 3d8 plus 8. She also has spells like Hex and Spirit Guardians to make her even more deadly. She also has the ability to animate dead and summon devils. She has a mix of healing, damage, and battlefield control spells, and as a prepared caster, she can customize her spell selection. Even though she will only have first-level wizard spells for almost all of her career, as a wizard she can collect spells and could easily end up with every first-level spell recorded, making her even more versatile. If you like this character and her story, tell us about it in the comments below, along with any questions, suggestions, or build ideas. And thanks to Sequana25 for the idea. I know we didn't follow it exactly, but we hope you like the direction we went. And we hope you all join us next time when we begin looking at the material in Planescape. Until then, cheers!